Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Undersecretary Estevez, we're facing an epidemic of gun violence in our country, and we continue to see armed conflict and even human rights abuses abroad committed with American-made weapons. We're told that export control of semi-automatic weapons are safer at Commerce than at the State Department because BIS has dedicated agents to do end-use monitoring on these firearms after they're exported, whereas State supposedly does not. However, isn't it true that such agents are checking to see if such exports are diverted to unapproved persons, but not checking for whether or not such firearms are being used for human rights abuses?
As I just answered Senator Brown before you came in, human rights are part of the licensing review, and certainly for firearms, they're at the top of the list for licensing review, and we do that with the Department of State, Department of Defense, and Department of Energy. And when we do our enforcement actions, we would do likewise.
But the end use efforts, isn't it really that they are diverted to making sure they are not diverted to unapproved persons? You're not really doing human rights monitoring on end use, are you?
We are doing human rights monitoring in the initial export decision. And should someone use an export inappropriately, we would look at our other tools, for example, entity list or blocking further licensing.
At least at State, the Congress was able to review and disapprove such sales above $1 million on human rights grounds if it so chooses. What congressional check has there been since the transfer of jurisdiction on those proposed exports?
As I believe you are aware, Senator, we have a rule that's going to go in effect on the 18th, on Monday, that will provide congressional notification regarding weapons. It's over a certain amount, and it precludes on our providing to our allies.
Yeah, I appreciate that, and I was happy to discuss that with Secretary Raimondo. However, even after the rule becomes effective, Congress won't be able to disapprove any such sales. Isn't that correct?
But you will see them in advance, and you can certainly provide it.
Let me reiterate my question. Congress will not be able to disapprove such sales. Isn't that correct?
That is correct.
Okay. Now, President Biden, when he was a candidate, promised that he would reverse President Trump's transfer of export control of semi-automatic weapons to Commerce and return control to the State Department, which he can do simply by regulation, and in so doing make them subject again to the Arms Export Control Act and therefore congressional oversight. Do you know of any progress within the administration in fulfilling the promise made by the president?
I do not, Senator.
Okay. Let me ask you on a different question. A New Jersey medical device manufacturer and its union employees received medical-grade stainless steel tubing from a long-standing supplier in Korea. The company has applied for and received limited exclusions from the Section 232 quota for this tubing, but managing inventory timing remains a huge and costly challenge even with those exclusions in place. The company has had to estimate its needs far into the future and stockpile tubing for up to a year at a time, costing them about $250,000 annually. In December 2020, BIS released a list of general approved exclusions for the Section 232 Korea steel quota, and anything classified under the HTS codes on that list are no longer subject to the quota cap. In my constituent company's interaction with BIS, career staff indicated additions to the list would be made over time. But to date, it's my understanding that no new exclusions have been granted under this process. Can you explain the process and timeline for placing additional HTS codes on the list, and what other criteria that are necessary to see additions made to the list?
On February 22nd, before I was confirmed into the position, BIS put out for public comment, asking for comments on additional exclusions to the list. We've received 98 comments to date, and we expect to have a rule out by the end of the year.
Well, I hope that BIS can continue to review new applications for general approved exclusions and make new additions where necessary. One last question. Much of your job involves making sure critical technologies don't fall into the hands of foreign adversaries, human rights abusers, or other rogue actors. Can you explain why maintaining America's technological leadership is so critical to our national security and the mission of BIS?
Thank you for that, Senator. Having American technology being used to develop military capabilities that are on par with ours, certainly threatens our national security. And when I was in the Department of Defense, my job was to arm U.S. forces to provide the weapons and capabilities that they use, because we never want to put a U.S. soldier, sailor, airman, or Marine into a fair fight. And my job right here is to protect American technology from being used by an adversary to do that. That's my North Star, Senator.
So therefore, we want to be in an unfair fight where we're on the side of the unfairness.
We want to be on it. If an adversary is threatening us, we want to win.
All right. Thank you very much.